The document you are about to see does not exist in any public archive. In 1964, at a depth of 120 feet, the United States Department of Defense accidentally opened a door that was never meant to be touched. They called it the Aethelgard Mirror Project, but the scientists who lived through it called it something else, a breach. This is the recovered footage of Case 001. If you are watching this, the containment has already failed. To the world, Aethelgard was a subterranean geological survey, but inside Level 8, the air was cold, sterile, and silent. Dr. Researcher Vance and his team were tasked with studying reflective anomalies. They used high-frequency acoustic vibrations to stabilize a mirror-like surface made of an unknown crystalline structure. At first, everything seemed normal. The tapes recorded data, the lights stayed on, but the mirror was doing more than reflecting light. It was beginning to learn. Look closely at the reel-to-reel recorder on the right. In the original classified logs, the magnetic tape began to spin in reverse whenever the mirror reached peak frequency. The scientists reported a strange humming sound that bypassed the ears and vibrated directly inside the skull. They were recording a heartbeat that wasn't human. They were measuring the pulse of a dimension that had been dormant for eons, waiting for a crack in the glass. This document was recovered from the ruins of the facility in 1989, labeled Level 5 Classified. It outlines the reflective stability protocols. Notice the red ink project breach. The government knew the risks long before the first event occurred. The acoustic anomalies mentioned in paragraph 2 weren't just noises. They were communication. Aethelgard wasn't a research lab. It was a listening post for an invasion that had already begun in secret. At the bottom of the page, there is a handwritten note added by a frantic hand. It mentions a 3-second lag. In physics, a reflection is near instantaneous. But in Level 8, the reflection started to move independently. If you waved at the mirror, your reflection would wave back 3 seconds later. The delay grew longer every day, as if something on the other side was struggling to mimic the movements of the living. By October 12th, the lag had reached nearly 10 seconds. The reflection of Dr. Vance would remain standing even after the doctor had left the room. The mirror was no longer a surface. It was a window, and whatever lived behind it was getting tired of watching. It wanted to step through. The red top secret stamp was a desperate attempt to bury the truth before the lag reached zero and the two worlds merged into one. This blueprint reveals the true scale of the isolation. 120 feet of reinforced concrete and lead shielding. The mirror core was placed at the very bottom Level 8. Why so deep? Because the vibrations from the project were causing structural collapses in nearby towns. But the depth wasn't for protection from the surface. It was designed to keep the sounds of Level 8 from being heard by anyone who could still be saved. Observe the reinforced containment seal surrounding the core. It was 12 inches of solid steel, designed to withstand a nuclear blast. But the breach didn't come from a physical force. It was a conceptual leak. The blueprints show a data analysis center on Level 6, where the first reports of shadow migration were filed. Shadows in the facility were no longer following the light sources. They were moving toward the mirror drawn to the core. The blueprints also hide a darker secret. There are no emergency exits from Level 8. The elevators were programmed to lock from the surface if the breach point was triggered. The scientists were never meant to come back up. They were the bait. Aethelgard was a trap, and the mirror core was the cheese. As we descend further into these records, keep in mind that every person in these photos was a ghost before the flash even went off. This is the final hallway leading to the mirror chamber. This photo was taken by an automated security camera moments after the main power failed. The silence in this corridor was said to be absolute. No air vents, no machinery, just the sound of your own blood pumping in your ears. It is a liminal space, a bridge between the world we know and the rot that was creeping in from the other side. The air here was reportedly thick, like water. Notice the signs on the wall. They point toward a room that should have been empty, but the shadows tell a different story. Guards stationed in this hallway reported seeing glimmers, brief flashes of a laboratory that looked exactly like theirs, but decayed and dark. They were seeing the future of Aethelgard. The facility was already being consumed by the mirror's influence, turning the concrete into something soft, organic, and ancient. At the end of this hall, the door is slightly ajar. According to the logs, this was the moment the mirror rot began to leak into our reality. A black, fibrous growth started spreading from the door frame, reaching out like veins. It didn't grow like a plant, it pulsed like a lung. If you stood in this hallway for too long, your own skin would begin to turn gray, matching the texture of the walls. The mirror was claiming the facility 1 inch at a time. October 12, 1964, the final entry in the Vance diary. The handwriting tells you everything the government redacted. It is frantic, uneven, and terrified. The mirror is humming, he wrote. I think something is looking back. This wasn't a metaphor. Dr. Vance had stopped seeing his own reflection in the glass. Instead, he saw a tall, thin figure with hollow eyes that followed him around the room, even when he turned his back to the mirror. Look at the sketch on the right page. These are the entities the team named the Reflected. They don't have faces, only voids. The math scattered around the edges of the page shows Vance trying to calculate the density of a soul. He realized too late that the mirror wasn't reflecting bodies. It was reflecting the space those bodies occupied. It was eating the existence of the staff and replacing it with a hollow, dark copy from the void. The final sentence of the log is the most chilling. The lag is at 0. At that moment, the reflection and the reality became one. There was no longer a difference between the scientist and the thing in the glass. Dr. Vance was pulled in and something else walked out wearing his lab coat. This notebook was found sitting on a desk in a room that was otherwise completely empty. No blood, no struggle. Just a single pen, still wet with ink. The moment of impact, the glass didn't just break. It detonated. This image captures the exact millisecond the Aethelgard mirror shattered outward. But the black smoke you see isn't fire. It's mirror rot in its purest gaseous form. It flooded the room instantly, suffocating the researchers and rewriting their DNA. The figures you see standing in the shadows are no longer human. They are the inhabitants of the void, finally free. Look at the scientists in this frame. They are standing perfectly still as the world collapses around them. Their reflections had already taken control. In the official report, the government claimed a gas leak caused a mass hallucination, but the thermal cameras recorded a drop in temperature to absolute 0. The heat was being sucked out of our world and into the mirror. Aethelgard was becoming a cold, dead star in a dark universe. The black tendrils on the walls are the physical manifestation of the breach. They are memories made of shadow. Every scream, every fear, and every secret kept in level 8 was turned into this dark mass. It spread through the ventilation shafts, reaching the upper levels in minutes. The reinforced containment seal was useless because the threat was already inside the minds of the men trying to close it. The breach was total. The facility was lost. 30 years later, a recovery team entered level 8. This is what they found. The once clean laboratory is now a tomb of black fiber and rusted steel. The mirror rot has consumed everything. The reel-to-reel recorder is still there, but it is fused to the desk by the dark growth. They tried to play the tapes, but the only sound they recovered was a loop of a human voice apologizing to a reflection that wouldn't stop screaming. The air in this room remains toxic. Anyone who enters without a pressurized suit reports hearing the humming sound within seconds. The mirror frame stands empty, but the void inside it is still active. It is a doorway that cannot be closed. The government poured 10,000 tons of concrete into the Aethelgard shaft in 1992, but sensors still detect movement deep below. The shadows are still down there, waiting for the concrete to crack. They tell us that Project Aethelgard was a failure. They tell us the breach was contained. But look into the glass. Look at the face that looks back at you. Are you sure your reflection is moving at the same speed as you are? Are you sure there isn't a lag? The things from level 8 didn't stay in the bunker. They followed the data. They followed the images. They followed the screen you are looking at right now. Don't look back.